today night compared with Friday night. Temperatures in some spots staying at 19 Celsius. But that's enough for some showers to develop on Saturday night across northern parts of the UK. They really get going on Sunday for central and western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland. Risk of intense thunderstorms, and that occurs more widely on Monday. Where these thunderstorms occur, because they'll be hit and miss, there is the risk of flash flooding.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello and welcome to GB News on your TV, online and your digital radio. I'm Dawn Neeson, covering for the lovely Nana this week, and in for the next 2 hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion, mine, theirs, but most importantly, yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times disagreeing, she says, looking nervously towards her panel. And joining me today, it's author and broadcaster, the lovely Christine Hamilton, and Conservative commentator, Calvin Robinson. Welcome, both of you. Lovely to have you with me. Apart from you, Calvin, obviously. Before we get started, let's get the latest news headlines.
Dawn, thank you. Good afternoon. It's 1 minute past 4. I'm Bethany Elsey in the GB newsroom. A drought has been declared in large parts of southern, central, east and southwest England. It means more water companies can begin announcing stricter measures to conserve supplies. Months of dry weather sees millions of people facing hosepipe bans, with Yorkshire Water becoming the latest firm to announce one from the 26th. A 4-day amber warning for extreme heat from the Met Office is currently in place for parts of England and Wales. Well, we can speak to our national reporter, Paul Hawkins, who's in Durley and Reservoir in Somerset. Paul, you've been to a couple of reservoirs today. How bad is it looking?
Yeah, well, that's the interesting thing, Bethany. There's a real contrast, only a 45-minute drive away. So we're at Durley Reservoir at the moment, which is about 61% full. This is run by Wessex Water. And the interesting thing here in the Wessex Water region is that 75% of the water it supplies comes from groundwater sources. So that's things like springs and wells, 25% from surface water, so rivers and reservoirs. That's in stark contrast to the rest of the country, which only sources 30% of the water around the country from groundwater sources. And that's why we're seeing hosepipe bans in Yorkshire, where they have more rainfall, but no hosepipe ban here in the Wessex Water region. The last time they had a hosepipe ban here was 1976. At the moment, Wessex Water say there are no plans for a hosepipe ban because there's that difference in where they get the water from. And also they've invested £230 million in a water network to move the water around their network from the groundwater into the rivers and into the reservoirs. Contrast that with Wimbleball, which is 45 minutes away. That's a reservoir, a lake in kind of West Somerset. There you can see from the pictures that we shot this morning, the water level has significantly fallen away because where they get their water from in South West Water is very, very different. It's more of the water there comes from the surface, places like the reservoir there. And so you can see significantly where the water level has fallen. In fact, we spoke to one local who said that that reservoir was created by flooding a village that was in the bottom of a valley, and that eventually, if the water level were to fall far enough, you'd see the top of a church spire. So that gives some indication of what's happening over in that part of the world, an indication that you only have to drive 45 minutes to somewhere else, to another part of the southwest, and the same hosepipe bans, the same drought conditions are not in place. That's not to say it's not hot and parched here, but just that where they get the water from and how they manage it is very different. Nevertheless, the message for everyone who's in those drought-affected regions is to try and conserve water. And in the meantime, the UK Centre for Hydrology and Ecology is saying that we are going to need anywhere from 1 to 3 months of exceptional rainfall. And when they say that, they don't mean the sporadic thunderstorms that we're going to see next week. They mean sustained light rainfall. Heavy rain runs straight off the hard surfaces. Light rainfall will absorb into the ground and make its way into those stores underneath the ground, where it can then feed into the reservoirs and push the reservoir level up.
Our national reporter Paul Hawkins there from Somerset. Thanks, Paul. Boris Johnson's admitted the current help for people struggling with the spiralling cost of living and rising energy prices isn't enough. It comes as a new price cap prediction claims the average family's annual energy bill could reach £5,300 by April next year. Speaking on a visit to North Wales, the outgoing Prime Minister also insisted there'll be extra help for the most hard-hit households, regardless of who succeeds him.
Cash is not only coming through now and has started to come through, but will continue to come through over the weeks and months ahead.
But there are people saying it's not enough. It's not enough.
And in addition, what we are doing is making sure that we have the fiscal firepower, we have the cash to help people more at those two key points, in October and in January.
The UK economy shrank by 0.1% between April and June, according to official figures. The Office for National Statistics says the phasing out of spending on test and trace and the COVID-19 vaccine programme is partly to blame. It's a big step down from the first 3 months of the year when GDP grew by 0.8%. Chancellor Nadhim Zahawi says he's looking at additional ways to help vulnerable households.
My task was to make sure we get the 37 billion out into people's pockets. We're midway through that, so in the next couple of months people will see their bills reduced by £400. The most vulnerable, 8 million, will get £324. So my message to the viewers is we're looking at all the options of what additional help we need to bring in later on in the winter months, in December and January. Work those up so they're ready to go from the 5th of September when the Prime Minister walks into number 10.
Tens of thousands of rail passengers will face disruption again tomorrow as some parts of the country will have no services at all. Train drivers at 9 train companies will go on strike for 24 hours in a dispute over jobs, pay and conditions. The industrial action will affect several lines, including Avanti West Coast, Great Western Railway, LNER, London Overground and South Eastern. And in even more industrial action, the Post Office will stage fresh strikes for 3 days at the end of August. The Communication Workers Union has announced staff will walk out on the 26th, the 27th and the 30th of August in an escalating dispute over pay. And the final list of UK cities that could host Eurovision in 2023 have been revealed. The 7 shortlisted cities are Birmingham, Glasgow, Leeds, Liverpool, Manchester, Newcastle and Sheffield. The UK was chosen to host the contest after organisers decided it couldn't be staged by this year's winners, Ukraine. This is GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens now. Let's return to Nana Akua.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Dawn Neeson. I'm covering for Nana this week on GB News, on TV, online and on digital radio. And, well, that news was a bit depressing, was it? But congratulations, you've made it to Friday. A beautiful, sunny, hot summer weekend stretches before you. Endless blue skies, long warm evenings, and if you're lucky, time off work to enjoy a barbecue with family and friends. What's not to like? Well, everything, if you listen to some. Because despite us Brits endlessly moaning about our miserable summers, when we finally have one, it's climate Armageddon. This isn't a rant about climate change deniers versus eco-warriors, though. It's about everything these days is turned into a catastrophe. Literally a don't go out the door or you'll die message. Suddenly, a summer heat wave becomes a warning that we're all going to perish in hellfire next week. The fact that you're going to sit on a deck chair in your garden with a cold beer or a nice cup of tea makes you guilty of ignoring the death and destruction of our planet. As Green Goblin Greta Thunberg, the high priestess of hysterical scaremongering, says, "How dare you?" Look, no one in their right mind denies that our climate is changing and that action is needed. But is terrorising an already anxious population the right way to go about it? The pandemic shredded our nerves and the cost of living crisis hangs very heavily over us. The last thing any of us need to be put through is the mental health ringer of doom and gloom about the weather. Please, can we just have a nice time for once? Let kids play on the beach, not quake in their darkened bedrooms, scrolling the latest dire warnings about how they're all going to burn, freeze, starve, delete as applicable, whatever week, before they're old enough to go to the pub. Little wonder child psychologists now recognise climate anxiety as a proper mental health issue. We put our kids through hell with COVID lockdowns and warnings that hugging Granny would kill her. Now we do this to them. The likes of Greta would be better off encouraging followers to become the scientists of the future, positive stuff, to work towards solving the issues this planet faces rather than petrifying them. But it's not just everyone's favourite Swedish truant though, is it? Even weather presenters have turned into prophets of doom. Not so long ago, our weather maps were, you can see here, illustrated with cute little yellow suns with temperatures on them. Now, look. It's colour-coded blood red, even though, whisper it quietly, the temperatures are exactly the same. What's that about? Meanwhile, news reports on some channels, not this one obviously, turn a simple piece about a hosepipe ban into a stern lecture on, red climate emergency. Can we just dial down the damn rhetoric and give us all a break? I'm old enough to remember, I know, when it was a new ice age that was going to be the end of days. Then it was, acid rain, followed by, let me think, holes in the ozone layer. But I don't remember the language being so intentionally horrifying or hectoring then. And yes, I remember the long, hot summer of 1976, though we're not meant to mention it now, are we? Or the fact it was a glorious time to be a kid, full of endless days, riding bikes, building dens, kicking footballs about, and only going home when your mum yelled for you. So, if you are looking after a little one this weekend, take them to the beach. Let them be kids. Let them have fun. Remember that? And while you're at it, remember to let your own hair down, because before you know it, we'll be back to endless grey skies, grim cold days. Weather presenters will no doubt ominously inform us that this is more evidence of climate Armageddon. But let's just call it what it is, shall we? Winter. Before we get stuck into the debate, though, here's what else we've got coming up today. At 5 o'clock, it's Friday Focus, and this week we're shining a spotlight on the UK drought. Just mentioned then. Yorkshire Water has become the latest company to announce a hosepipe ban, as another heatwave scorches the country after months of low rainfall. The restrictions will come into effect from the 26th of August, the company's director said, citing fears over falling water stocks and the need for caution over clean water supplies and long-term river health as the basis for its decision. But is this the best way to tackle the heatwave? And for the great British debate this hour, I'm asking, should we renationalise energy to ease the cost of living? Former Labour Prime Minister Gordon Brown, who doesn't shut up recently, does he, has urged the government to temporarily renationalise energy firms in a bid to alleviate the cost of living crisis. Energy prices are expected to soar more than £4,000 by next April, leaving many Brits in a state of panic. But renationalising energy could mean taxpayers fork out even more when all the dust settles. And in Health Watch, children under 10 are being offered booster to the polio vaccine after an unusually large number of polio viruses has been detected in the sewage systems. That's coming up in the next hour. But tell me what you think on everything we're discussing by emailing gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews. Right, let's get cracking, shall we? And welcome again to my panel, author and broadcaster Christine Hamilton and Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson. Welcome to you both. I'm so pleased it's you two here with me on a lovely Friday afternoon, and hopefully you're all protecting yourself from the sun by staying in and watching telly. It's going to be cracking, OK? So first I want to discuss the story I was just talking about. Christine, Calvin, what do you think? Is it climate Armageddon or is it a lovely sunny day that we should enjoy? Christine, you're looking at me like you think it might be worth a gin and tonic in the garden. Not now, obviously.
Absolutely. Thank goodness for air conditioning in the studio. Of course, it's not Armageddon. I mean, you mentioned them, didn't you? Every sort of 10 years, we have some specific scare story. It's acid rain, it's the ozone layer, and all the polar bears will be gone and the ice caps will have melted. And I mean, this has been... We've only been measuring climate since, I think it's 1978. We have no idea what went on in medieval times or Roman times. We have no idea.
But this is what confuses me, Christine. There was a report this morning on Arrival channel, obviously, and they were saying that, this is the worst it's been since 1845 or something. I was thinking, how do you know?
They don't know. It is man-made global climate hysteria. That's what it is. It's not man-made climate change. How do they know exactly? It's just like all the COVID lockdown business. It was all based on modelling. It wasn't real science.
I'm old enough to remember 1976, not 1845, by the way. And Kelvin, you're much younger than both of us. Welcome. What do you think about this? I mean,
I'll get some hate for this, but I'm not entirely convinced that climate change is man-made.
Oh, God, he went there.
Because I've seen the pictures of, they say water levels are rising, and I've seen pictures of islands where the water is exactly the same place like 100 years ago as it is now. I've seen the temperatures are the same now as they were 100 years ago. I'm not convinced that climate change is man-made. And if it is, I'm not convinced that we can have much of an impact in the UK either.
Exactly.
Because all the CO2 is coming from China.
Absolutely.
But, Christine mentioned some of these alarmist news announcements we've had over the years. In 1987, Biden said, within the next few years, we'll have a climate catastrophe. In 1995, the UN said, we'll have no coast by 2020. In 2009, Al Gore said that the east coast of America, there'll be no beaches left within 5 years. All of these, and there's so many more of these pronouncements. It is climate alarmism, sensationalism. It sells papers, it sells headlines. But the best way to avoid climate change is to turn over the TV. Put GB News on. Don't be watching.
Not turn off the TV.
BBC,
no. Watch us.
But you're absolutely right. But you're absolutely right when you said that people are getting really scared by this, and young people in particular, who frankly don't know any better. They've had this stuff shoved down their throats by teachers, by parents, by almost every television station. And it's not surprising that they are seriously scared about it.
Why, though? Why do we want young people to be anxious about this? I mean, I get that for teachers and parents and news presenters, it's a good thing to be seen as a good person. So you want to be, of course, we want to protect the climate.
You've just failed miserably on this one, Calvin, by the way.
I care more about truth than being perceived as a good person. But it's climate virtue signalling, isn't it?
Of course it is. Absolutely.
But this is what I feel. I mean, I know, young people roll their eyes when you mention 1976, right? And And it's like, I get that. I get why they are. But
why?
What annoys... Well, because it's like, you know, you can't mention that it was just a heat wave and wasn't it a lovely summer because you're all going to die because of it. And, well, quite clearly I didn't. I'm still here. Although I might look a bit dead this afternoon. It's been a long week. But it's like, this is what worries me most about where we are with this situation. It is that kids are genuinely terrified. Genuinely.
Yes, no, they are.
I mean, Greta Thunberg, you're entitled to your opinion, but why can she not just be more positive, Christine? Why does she not have a more positive message rather than telling her followers, you're going to die next week?
Yeah, well, I mean, goodness knows, you'd have to ask her that. But she has undue...
Funny enough, she won't talk to me.
She carries undue, especially with the younger generation, she's like a sort of holy priestess of this whole
It's
thing.
weird, isn't it? It is like a cult.
Very, very weird. It is like a cult. What we should do with this drought business is we should do what Jim Callaghan did when he was Prime Minister in 1976, which you mentioned. He appointed a Minister for Drought, chap called Dennis Howell.
Remember that? I remember
that. He was a Birmingham
that.
MP.
Yes.
Dennis Howell was appointed Minister for Drought, and he was told to basically go and do a rain dance. And honestly, within 2 or 3 days, we had torrential rain.
We did, didn't we?
And he became known as the Minister for Floods. So that's what we obviously need to do.
She's just coming back to me. We actually, Calvin, I don't know how you feel about doing a rain dance this afternoon outside with us, just in case.
For rain.
Right, OK, not into the dancing thing, though.
Not really.
We got the legs for it.
In regards to Greta Thunberg, I don't really blame her because I think, you know, the UN in 1989 said entire nations are going to be wiped off the face of the earth, and as late as 2000, British scientists are saying the next generation will not experience snow. So it's been peddled for years and years. Of course, people like her are going to be afraid and anxious and pushing for this really hard.
Yeah. Well, she's a very vulnerable age group. But there's something else that's happened.
She's also very rich because of it. Just saying.
Something else has happened in the last few days, which has been mentioned, but not overly by a lot of other channels. What's happened to the Great Barrier Reef? That was going to disappear
Now it's
because
growing,
of climate
isn't it?
change. Now it's more healthy than it's ever been.
But that's it. All of these things are contested, and climate change is unprovable. So the fact that we're all going along, well, not all of us, but the vast majority of the mainstream media is going along with it, just shows an unscientific approach to the weather.
Just you mentioned the Great Barrier. I was just reading about that this morning as well, and it's actually healthier than it ever has been.
Absolutely.
How it was meant to be ending now.
What is that? You've got a Turning Point Margaret Thatcher quote underneath.
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. This is what this is Margaret Thatcher. I didn't have time to fact check it, but I mean, evidently she said global warming provides a marvellous excuse for global socialism.
Absolutely. Good old Thatcher.
I knew you'd like that one. That's why I did it just for you, Calvin.
I'd like a copy of that.
You may have that.
Well,
excuse the blue paper.
I mean, that's superb.
But even in terms of the water, so we don't have a shortage of water. What's happened is the water companies sold off their reservoirs, never replaced them, and they've got hundreds of thousands of leaks all over the shop that they haven't fixed.
But this is the last...
We haven't had a new reservoir for 31 years.
You know, this is just what I was going to say,
What the hell have they been doing?
Despite the population going through the roof, no one's building new reservoirs.
No, I know. Well, what are they spending the money in? I wonder, ask the shareholders and the foreign companies who are investing,
this is the thing, as Calvin pointed out, the water companies are all... millions... How many... It's enough to fill over 1,000 Olympics... I don't know what an Olympic-sized swimming pool actually looks like, but it's big.
It's
a day, a single day, and they're still paying huge amounts of bonuses.
So rather than
people
fix
running...
leaks, they're telling us not to use our water.
Yeah, so it's our fault again.
Well, I'll tell you where I think the fault lies. I mean, I'm all in favour of privatisation, so I don't object to the privatisation of water, etc., and I think it would be a complete disaster to renationalise it. That is not what we want. But where has Ofwat been all this time? They're supposed to regulate the companies. Why haven't they put more pressure on them to fix these leaks and force them to spend more money on fixing leaks rather than sending all this money abroad to foreign shareholders?
Yeah, funny enough. Meanwhile, we can all do our bit by not having a shower and just using a wet flannel. I'm going to leave that one there. I'm Dawn Neeson. I'm covering for Nana today on GB News, on your TV and on digital radio. After the break, it's time for the Great British Debate. This hour, I'm asking, should we renationalise energy to ease the cost of living? Former Labour Prime Minister Gordon Brown has urged the government to temporarily, of course, renationalise energy firms in a bid to alleviate the cost of living crisis. Energy prices are expected to soar to more than £4,000 by next April, leaving many Brits in a state of panic, me included. But renationalising energy could mean taxpayers forking out even more because we'd be in charge. Anyway, send us an email at gbviews@gbnews.uk and tell us what you think. You can also tweet at GBNews, and there's a poll up right now asking, should we renationalise energy to ease the cost of living? Cast your vote now. First, it's the weather forecast.
Hello again, I'm Aidan McGibbon from the Met Office. It's a hot and sunny one once again out there for most of us. It will stay warm overnight as well, but one exception to the clear and hot conditions, the north and northeast, where there is some lingering low cloud and some mist around coasts. That will continue, I think, in many spots, but elsewhere, high pressure bringing plenty of sunshine out there, barely a cloud in the sky for most of the UK, and that's the way it remains overnight. That low cloud and mist I mentioned affecting the far north of Scotland, some rain attached to it for the likes of Shetland and Orkney for a time, and some extra low cloud and mist creeping into northeastern coasts overnight. But it's a warm night wherever you are, a muggy one, uncomfortable for sleeping with some places like Cardiff and London. Temperatures staying at 18 Celsius through the night. And then a bright start to the day tomorrow. Once any early low cloud and mist gets out of the way, many places will see another sunny day. Again, the far north of Scotland sees a lot of cloud and some patchy rain and drizzle, but elsewhere it's sunshine, strong sunshine and rising temperatures. 30 Celsius in Keswick there, 35 for Worcester. Could see a 36 close to the West Midlands or the West Country, perhaps East Wales as well. So those kinds of temperatures, unusual for the UK and can cause health impacts and impacts to infrastructure because, of course, the country isn't used to this kind of heat. So extreme heat warning in force through the weekend. An uncomfortable night once again for sleeping. A touch warmer even on Saturday night compared with Friday night. Temperatures in some spots staying at 19 Celsius. But that's enough for some showers to develop on Saturday night across northern parts of the UK. They really get going on Sunday for central and western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland. Risk of intense thunderstorms, and that occurs more widely on Monday. Where these thunderstorms occur, because they'll be hit and miss, there is the risk of flash flooding.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello. Hello, I'm Dawn Neeson on GB News, on TV and on digital radio. Right, we've got some breaking news for you right now, and Salman Rushdie, the author whose writing led to death threats from Iran in the 1980s, is reported to have been attacked earlier today as he was about to give a lecture in Western New York. The former Booker Prize winner was speaking at an event of the Chautauqua Institution at the time. Witnesses say they saw a man run on stage and either punch or stab Mr. Rushdie. It's not known how serious his injuries are, and we'll bring you more news on that as we get it. Right, it's time for the great British debate. I'm asking, should we renationalise energy to ease the cost of living? Former Labour Prime Minister Gordon Brown has urged the government to temporarily renationalise energy firms in a bid to alleviate the cost of living crisis. He said Downing Street needs to take immediate action by cancelling the energy price cap in October and ease the financial burden for Brits. His suggested number 10 should penalise those companies that fail to cut their bills. Energy prices are expected to soar to more than £4,000 by next April, leaving many Brits in a state of panic. But renationalising energy could mean taxpayers, that's all of us, remember, fork out even more. So for the great British debate this hour, I'm asking, should we renationalise energy to ease the cost of living? So to discuss, teeth in Dawn. So to discuss this further, I'm joined by the founder of Fairfuel UK, Howard Cox. Hello, Howard. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon. Nice to speak to you again.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for joining us. I feel like I'm talking to you regularly, which is a good thing because we need your expert advice on this. So, I mean, this is obviously Gordon Brown, who we can't shut up at the moment, a bit like Tony Blair, his former colleague, always have an opinion on everything, don't they? So where do you stand on how? Does this make sense to renationalise energy companies?
Well, every ounce of my being is totally anti that. I want to keep it privatised completely. The only thing is, I'm with Christine Hamilton, which she said to you earlier. We need to be tougher and scrutinise. Where has Ofwat and Ofgem, where have these bodies been in terms of actually protecting consumers? And that's the thing. We've got an essential resource, masses of essential resources being controlled by people that seem to be clueless in terms of managing a company. But I have to say to you now, if we went nationalised, if civil servants took over, I'm afraid it would be in a worse state than we are now.
That's a very fair point, actually. Yeah, that doesn't bear thinking about. So what should the government be doing then? What should they do to help us all?
Well, obviously, my main issue here is with petrol and diesel prices at the pumps, as we've discussed this before. And what I'm calling for is another body, a proper body we call Pump Watch, will actually to stop opportunistic profiteering. And that's why we've got to really put some rules, some legislation in place that makes these companies invest in our future energy self-sufficiency and security. That's the sort of thing they should be doing. And that's the only way they should interfere. And if they don't meet those particular targets of actually making us self-sufficient and secure for the future, then they should be punished very much in the pocket. And that's the way to move this forward. But let these private businesses compete properly, and hopefully competition will keep prices down. I know that's easy to say now, but hopefully that's what will happen in the future.
Because, I mean, Liz Truss last night at one of the hustings, I think we're only halfway through, she did say she didn't think profit was a dirty word. But, I mean, it is the fact that these oil companies, in particular the oil companies, not the energy suppliers themselves, but the oil suppliers like Shell and BP, are recording multi-billion-pound profits. I mean, surely this is the issues we need to be tackling. And how do you feel about what Liz Truss said last night?
Well, I'm pro-profit, but I'm not pro-profiteering. And that's the thing that's happening at the moment in the fuel supply chain. These oil companies are making gargantuan profits on a lucky increase in oil prices. It's nothing to do with their business acumen, their business skills whatsoever. And, wouldn't you like to have a business that, someone just throws a load of money at you? You haven't done any work for it, but you're getting rich on it. And that's what's happening with these oil companies. And that's why we need these bodies like Pump Watch. I'm backed by and supported by a lot of backbench Tory MPs. And I understand Liz Truss is actually supporting this push for Pump Watch too. What we need is actually some really consensus here right across all parties that actually control this profiteering, but allow them to actually profit so they can invest in making us self-sufficient for the future.
But that's not what that doesn't seem to be what they're doing, does it, Howard? I mean, rather than reinvesting for the future, in particular with the energy suppliers, with the fuel bills we are all facing, they seem to be just handing it out to their shareholders instead.
Well, that's right. And they even handed it out to their shareholders when the profits were bad for them. So it's a win-win-win for them. But we've got to get some legislation in place where we scrutinise the whole process of pricing our energy, pricing our petrol, pricing our diesel. When oil goes up, when we go to the pumps, we have no idea a week or two later what that we will be paying when we're filling up our cars and our trucks. I'm backed by the Road Haulage Association, and their members, truckers, 50% of their costs are fuel at the moment, of which half is tax. So those are the sorts of things we can control. Right at the moment, right now, I'm calling on the government to cut fuel duty by 25p, as they've done in Germany. And guess what? That cut in Germany of 25p has reduced their inflation by half a percentage point. Why are we not doing that here?
Well, quite, Howard. Let's hope they listen to you. Just one final question and a quick answer from you, Howard, if we can. If the government don't do anything and the situation continues as it is, can you see a time when we do get to civil unrest, as many people are predicting?
I'm afraid so. It's becoming that way already. People are at the end of their tether. And I don't know. I don't advocate this sort of, protesting we've seen, like, Extinction Rebellion, gluing themselves, all that sort of thing. But I'm afraid people are worried sick about how they're going to pay their bills. And how far you can push them is, I'm sorry, it could turn ugly.
Right, OK, that's a sobering thought there. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, Howard. OK, let's have a quick look at what some of you have been saying. And this is from Daryl, who says, I don't think we should give the government too much power. Well, quite agree on that one. And David says, the government can't control the NHS. What makes any of us think they should behave more responsibility? Meanwhile, Ian says, I do not believe in temporary nationalisation. You either do it or you don't. The idea seems half-baked. Well, there's a lot of that going on, and the fact that we hand it back is worrying me slightly. OK, thanks for those messages. I'm Dawn Neeson. I'm covering for the lovely Anna this week on GB News, on TV and digital radio. After the break, we'll continue the great British debate. I'm asking, should we renationalise energy to save the cost of living crisis? You'll hear thoughts of my panel, author and broadcaster Christine Hamilton and Conservative commentator Calvin Robertson. First, it's the latest news headlines.
Dawn, thank you. It's 4:33. I'm Bethany Elsey in the GB newsroom, and we'll start with some breaking news. There are reports the novelist Salman Rushdie has been attacked on a lecture stage during an event in New York. He's the author of 13 novels, and his writing has led to several death threats being made against him and a fatwa as well. This is a developing story, and we'll bring you more as we get it. The Environment Agency has warned England could see a drought last into next year following the driest summer for 50 years. It's after a drought has been declared in parts of England, including the southwest, southern and central regions. It means yet more water companies may bring in stricter measures to conserve supplies. Yorkshire Water has become the latest to impose a hosepipe ban. The UK economy shrank by 0.1% between April and June. The Office for National Statistics says the phasing out of spending on test and trace and the COVID-19 vaccine programme is partly to blame. It's a big step down from the first 3 months of the year when GDP grew. Boris Johnson's admitted the current help for people struggling with the spiralling cost of living isn't enough. Speaking on a visit to North Wales, the outgoing Prime Minister also insisted there'll be extra help for the most hard-hit households, regardless of who succeeds him. Meanwhile, from Edinburgh, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer's made claims that his party's been leading on the cost of living crisis.
Had the government acted more quickly on the windfall tax, then for many more months families would have been protected under a better scheme by Labour. If the government had acted on Labour's idea for VAT to be reduced, to be eliminated on energy bills, many people would be better off. For the 4 million who are using prepayment meters, we're saying clearly we would abolish them, would help 4 million people who very often are those struggling most throughout this crisis.
And the final list of UK cities that could host Eurovision 2023 have been revealed. The 7 shortlisted cities are Birmingham, Glasgow, Leeds, Liverpool, Manchester, Newcastle and Sheffield. The UK was chosen to host the contest after organisers decided it couldn't be staged by this year's winners, Ukraine. On TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. We'll get back to Dawn in just a second.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. You're with Dawn Neeson. I'm covering for the lovely Nana this week on GB News and on digital radio. Back to our great British debate this hour. I'm asking, should we renationalise energy to ease the cost of living? Former Labour Prime Minister Gordon Brown, remember him, has urged the government to temporarily renationalise energy firms in a bid to alleviate the cost of living crisis. Energy prices are expected to soar to more than £4,000 by next April, leaving many Brits in a state of panic. But renationalising energy could mean taxpayers fork out even more. So, for the great British debate this hour, I'm asking, should we renationalise energy to ease the cost of living? So let's see what my wonderful panel make of this. I'm joined by author and broadcaster Christine Hamilton and Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson. Christine, Calvin, come on, Gordon Brown. Christine, you remember him? I mean, now you can't forget him.
I certainly do.
So what do you think of his advice now?
What is this temporary renationalisation?
Temporary.
I simply don't understand what he means by that. I mean, maybe I haven't read far enough into what he said, but it's going to cost billions to renationalise, billions and billions to buy out the shareholders. And the government,
our money.
The government doesn't have any money that isn't ours, so we're going to pay for it one way or the other. I simply don't understand. You cannot temporarily renationalise.
Well, this is the temporarily. I mean, do you think if it happens, would it ever go back? Calvin, what do you reckon?
No, nothing is ever temporary, isn't it? And it's unaffordable, as you say, because it will cost billions of our money. But we're going to pay for this one way or another.
Yeah.
Either we're going to pay for it on our bills, or we're going to pay for it by increased national debt. Something has to be done, though. And I think one way might be scrap the national insurance rise for a start.
Well, which one has promised that? Is it Liz or Rishi? I keep up.
Liz.
Promising what?
I think it's Liz.
I think it was Liz.
Yeah, because Rishi's the one who brought it in.
Yes, don't hold me to it. But
but he might have changed his mind.
I'm glad you're confused.
They'll say anything, but scrap income, cut income tax, cut VAT down to 15%, and axe these green levies. I think there are 4 or 5 things we could do straight away to make life a bit easier for people.
Even if you do the green levies temporarily,
yeah,
that makes sense, surely.
Why do we have green levies?
But because it'll save the planet, Kelvin.
Because of Marie Antoinette, that's why.
So you and I paying more on our energy bills somehow saves the planet?
Yeah, meanwhile, the energy companies like Shell and BP are making billions they're handing to their shareholders rather than investing in green energy.
We need to scrap this dash for net zero in 2050, which was all Carrie's idea, and that's what Boris suddenly started to sort of double down or double up, according to what
Carrie Antoinette. So
Carrie
she's
Antoinette,
nicknamed in the cabinet, evidently.
So, I mean, scrap that for a start. Now, fracking, you see, fracking. Both Rishi and Liz Truss have both said that they will allow fracking to continue where the locals want it. Well, excuse me, no locals are going to agree to have it, so that's it's not going to happen, is it?
It's a good cop-out, isn't it?
It's an absolute cop-out, yes, you know.
Right. There's one story, I think it's in the Daily Mail today, that made me look twice. We're actually, evidently, what we do is for the biggest power station in the country, Drax up in Yorkshire, right, OK? We actually now, because it's green, we actually ship wooden pellets over from Louisiana in America to burn in Yorkshire because it's better for the environment. So how does that make sense?
Millions and millions of trees are being cut down.
Oh, but they're renewable. They just take 100 years.
They're renewable, exactly, and they're being translated into these little tiny pellet things, which are then loaded into some great ship, some gas-guzzling or oil-guzzling ship. It's crazy.
It's all a money-making scam, all of this climate change emergency. People are making a lot of money off us, and we're paying out of our wallets. I mean, I can't afford £4,000 a year on energy. I just can't. So I don't know how everyone else is going to do it.
Well, what is the average income in this country? Is it around about £28,000? Forgive me if I'm wrong there.
Certainly can't afford 4,000.
No. I mean, that's a huge chunk of your income, isn't it? I mean, sort of like, say the average nurse in this country, for example, if they're on their own and they're on sort of like, around about £30,000, suddenly, and £4,000, I heard £5,000 at one point this morning.
And also, I mean, I know it's very difficult and people don't like means testing and it's difficult to bring in a means testing system, but suddenly everybody has been given £400, or will be given, towards their energy bills. I'm in a lucky position. I'm not rich, but I don't need that £400, and yet I'm getting it anyway. Surely.
Don't work. They just do not work. Let people keep more of the money that they are earning. Stop taking my money to give to someone else.
Or give back to you. Give back to you. Don't take it in the first place.
This is the weird thing. I mean, and that £400 bill rebate for all households, including second homes.
I know.
Because, funny enough, most politicians and MPs have second homes. Oh, by the way, talking of that, they can claim their energy bills off on expenses against us.
Yeah, I know.
And there's no cap on that, unlike the energy cap, which isn't actually a cap, no, it's more or less a target, isn't it? We just admit that, it just keeps going up every couple of months. I mean, £5,000, £10,000. At what point do we go, I really can't afford this now?
The only thing that can be done to put a plug in this whole thing is to start stopping the leaks. I know that's going to be a long process, and that comes back to what I said before the break, is that why haven't Ofwat, they are the public guardians of all this. It's a privatised water system now. No longer is water competing with the NHS and schools and everything else, which it does when it's nationalised, so it makes it very, very difficult. Why hasn't Ofwat turned the screw on these companies over the past... I mean, when was water privatised? 1986 or something like that. Over the decades, why haven't they been made to fix more of these leaks? And they expect us to bath with a friend and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which will save sort of 10% of what they lose through leaks.
Yeah, Paris thought you're having a bath, Christine. Don't be stupid.
Well, by the way...
It's a wet flannel, a quick wipe down once a week.
May I say that I have always thought, this is going to shock people, but I have always thought that people bath and shower far too much.
Oh, no. When I was a teacher, I used to tell my kids in assemblies, you need to shower once a day at least.
No, you don't.
Good hygiene. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Why? Why once a day?
No, you don't.
Good hygiene.
No, you don't need to wash.
The amount of young people that come to school smelling, it's like, come on, this is not good.
No, that I understand.
But after a day, you're not going to smell. Where is this conversation going? After a day, you're not going to smell.
If you're really dirty or you've got incredibly hot and sweaty...
This is a very British thing. The British are known for not bathing as often as we should.
I didn't have a shower this morning. Do I smell?
Oh, God, I wonder what that was.
It's not very nice. But...
You smell absolutely lovely.
You have to wash the crucial bits.
Yeah.
I think we've
actually, I'm now personally blaming Calvin for the entire water shortage. But, I mean, sort of like going back to, nationalising industries, I mean, Howard Cox, who we were speaking to earlier, said that unless something is done, and something is done soon, I'm not suggesting what Gordon Brown says is right, but unless something is done soon, There will be civil unrest in this country. Do you think that's a possible thing?
Nothing will be done because big business is winning from all of this stuff. They're making a lot of money. Politicians are too short-termist. You know, we saw that Nick Clegg said back in 2010, we shouldn't focus on nuclear energy because it won't be done until 2021/2022. Well, if they had have done that, we'd be all a lot happier now. So politicians aren't going to help us. Big business is not going to help us. We're going to have to help ourselves.
And?
It's going to end up in civil unrest.
What? I mean, would you take part? Would either of you take part?
Yes.
Would you? Christine?
Well, it depends. I mean, I've marched before over various things, but yeah, I might, yes. The other thing I don't understand is, I can't remember which water company, but I think it's Thames, spent £250 million on a desalination plant that has not been put into action.
Oh, this is
now,
the
what
Thames
is that
water
all
one,
about?
isn't it?
Thames,
Yeah.
yes. Now, how can that be? How can they possibly have spent that amount of money and apparently have absolutely nothing to show? We're an island. We should be desalinating water all the time.
That's the only one. They spent millions of pounds on it. It's not working until next year, obviously, when we've all burned to death in any case, possibly, or drowned, or whatever we're going to do. And wasn't the CEO of Thames Water ordered a bonus of millions of pounds for doing such a good job?
I've always been accused of being quite snobby on this, but Thames Water is disgusting. It's already been through like at least 8 human beings before it gets to us.
Oh, God, you're obsessed by hygiene this afternoon,
You can taste the difference. If you go up in the Midlands, where I'm from, Severn Trent water, it just tastes like water. Then you come down to London, it tastes disgusting.
Oh, stick to alcohol, Calvin.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I mean, it's in the Bible, isn't it? Why drink water when you can drink wine? Something along those lines. In any case, this show is nothing without you and your views. So let's welcome one of our great British voices. This is your opportunity to be on the show and tell us what you really think about the topics we're discussing, including how often Calvin showers. This hour, we're heading over to Watford to speak to GB viewer David Baum. Hello, David. Hiya.
Hello. I love the
Hello.
idea of Christine not showering, Calvin showering. What a great...
Which are you Team Christine or Team Calvin on this one?
Team Calvin. I'm Team Calvin.
Right,
I
so-
do run around a lot and I sweat, so I do need to shower.
Right,
I do shower. I would like to make it clear. I do shower, just not every day. People are obsessive about it, and I'm not.
I apologise, Christine. I was thinking, has anyone told Sid that British Gas might be renationalised? Because obviously people follow Sid, bought on Sid. Is the government going to give everyone back their share, the money they bought for the shares, and all the multinationals who actually, and the pension companies and the unions actually own the shares of these companies?
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? I mean, and with nationalisation, be careful what you wish for, because all it actually basically means is the government owning it, which is basically, remember, we're the government, we pay the money here, and so if that company does well, you benefit. If it does badly, you pay for it.
I don't think any nationalised industry has ever worked well. It always loses money, and then there's an uproar and demanding it's privatised because that's the only way it can actually work. But why not take a simple answer to all these companies and say, right, 60%, you can spend 60% of your net profits, your profits, on salaries, dividends, etc. 40% has to be reinvested into green, whatever you want to do to reinvest it to make better. And if you've got extra money left over, pass it back to the consumer who actually pays your salary.
Well, quite, absolutely. And David, one final question. We've already been discussing civil unrest. Unfortunately, if something isn't done soon, would you be willing to take part in civil unrest if it got to that?
If it's a protest without violence, yes. If it's a protest with violence, no. I do not believe violence will solve anything except make people more anti and doing changing.
So, and Gordon Brown and Tony Blair, to be fair, they both keep sticking their oar in. What do you think about their helpful advice that we're all being offered?
I have to be very careful because you may never have me back on GB News again.
Oh, what are you going to say?
My opinion of Mr. Blair is I wouldn't trust a thing that he says. Sorry.
Okay.
And Gordon Brown, we got rid of gold when it was at the ridiculously low rate, and we're still paying the price for his actions. So, no, I don't believe Mr. Brown or Mr. Blair should have a word about anything.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us, David, today. Good to hear from you. Thank you. OK, today I'm asking, should we renationalise energy to ease the cost of living? Lots of you have been getting in touch with your views, so let's hear what some of you have got to say. Matt says, if we renationalise, I believe we're at risk of more power cuts, which is obviously very true. Meanwhile, Paul says, if we look at the bigger picture, we can see our country has never been good at forward planning. No, that's true. The root problem is our infrastructure. Meanwhile, Gemma says the majority of these energy companies are far too large to nationalise, and a lot of them are owned by foreign companies as well, so quite how that works. Meanwhile, Mercy says nationalisation will only bring back a lack of investment and cost us all a lot more money through tax.
Very good Mercy.
That was our Mercy. And the next one is from Mark, and my husband's called Mark, so is it Mark? The UK does not have a feasible energy security policy. A renationalisation of the energy companies would be a start. Oh, interesting. OK.
Does that sound like your husband?
No, it doesn't sound like my husband at all. Lots of long words in there for a start. In any case, there's also a poll up on Twitter today throughout the show asking, should we renationalise energy to ease the cost of living? Currently, it's 50-50.
Wow.
Now, that is very interesting.
Yeah.
So head on over to Twitter to cast your vote now. Right, OK, I'm Dawn Neeson. Still, I'm covering for Nana this week on GB News, on TV and digital radio. Now, after the break, children under 10 are being offered a booster to the polio vaccine after an unusually large number of polio viruses has been detected in the sewage. Ooh. First, it's a short break.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hi, I'm Dawn Neeson. I'm covering for Nana this week on GB News, TV and on digital radio. Now, polio used to be one of the most feared childhood diseases. I remember back in the 60s when I was a kid, it was, iron lungs, all that sort of thing. It can attack the nervous system and in just a few hours leave someone paralysed. That's the iron lung thing I was talking about. And now it's been found in some of the sewers of London. In an effort to stop this spreading, children under 10 are being offered a booster to the polio vaccine. But how has this once extinct disease made a comeback? I'm joined by virologist Professor Hugh Pennington, who can hopefully answer a few of our questions on this one. Good afternoon, Hugh. Welcome to the show.
Hi there.
Hello. Right, OK, so what is happening? Why has polio made a comeback? And what will the vaccine do to help us?
Well, there are two kinds of vaccine. The one we use in this country is a dead virus, but the one that they use in countries which still have a polio problem is a live vaccine, and we used to use that. It has the advantage that it spreads from person to person, so it immunizes people who haven't had the actual, well, it's on a sugar lump. You take it by mouth. Now, that virus is going around in countries like Afghanistan and Nigeria, and some of it has come here. Somebody's brought it to this country. Now, that in itself is not a problem because the vaccine is quite safe. The live vaccine is quite, but what's happened is that in some people, the virus has spread maybe within a family, within a community, and it's mutated to become a little bit sharper than it should be, with the potential of causing illness. Now, the potential is a very low one, but it's a very real one. And the reason why this has happened in the UK, why it's happened in London, is that vaccination levels have been very low in parts of North and East London. And so that virus has found a population, which is good for it to spread. If we had the levels of vaccination that we should have, the virus wouldn't have gone anyway. It would have been imported and it would have died out. So the problem is low vaccination levels in some parts of London and a virus that's been brought in. We can't stop that happening, but we can stop the virus spreading once it comes here by making sure we have a 80%, something like that, coverage of vaccine, and it's down in the 50s kind of thing in some communities, which is not near enough to stop this vaccine virus spreading around and mutating.
Right, Hugh, if I can call you that, by the way, Hugh. How is it spreading in between families? I mean, how do you actually get polio? And B, why is there such a low uptake of vaccine in some areas of London?
Well, vaccination hesitancy, or whatever you call it, is quite common in some communities for all sorts of reasons, and won't go into those. But unfortunately, it's a fact. You just have to accept that some people are much more unlikely to put their kids forward for vaccination than others, and that particular problem is because of that, and that's why we have this problem in the first place. Now, your other question.
How do you catch it in a family? Once it's in a family, someone has it. How do other members of the family catch it?
Well, I suppose you could say it's a hygiene issue, really. The virus goes into your intestines. That's where it lives. It only causes a problem when it gets out of the intestines into the nervous system, which it doesn't do very often. Even in the olden days, it didn't do it very often. But it did it often enough for it to be a real problem, as you said. And then it comes out in the poo, and if that gets into water that somebody's going to drink, or gets into food or onto food, bingo, the virus can transmit. So that's how it's getting about. We don't know precisely how it's doing that in London, because what we've been looking at is the end result, which is somebody passing the virus in their poo, going down the sewers, and then they're looking for it in the not so much in the drains, but in the sewage plants. And one thing I suppose that should be a bit reassuring is that they have not just found it at Beckton, which is a giant sewage sort of management plant, but they've gone back up the drains and found that it's in various boroughs that supply their sewage to Beckton. They haven't been able to do it any more detail than that, like going into particular streets or houses. I'm sure they won't bother doing that because they don't need to. All we have to do is make sure that the people in those communities in North and East London particularly have a good uptake of vaccine, and that will stop the virus. It'll remove the opportunity for the virus to spread because the people will be immune and the virus won't spread in them.
And Hugh, just quickly, if you could just reassure our viewers that the vaccine is entirely safe and they should get youngsters, particularly I think under the age of 9, is it, to take their vaccinations?
That's right. No, the vaccine that we use in the UK and we've used for the last 20 years is a dead virus. It doesn't go anywhere. It causes absolutely no problems at all. It's one of the safest vaccines ever invented. I can reassure on that. And it's absolutely safe to have. The only problem with it is you have to have a needle stuck in your arm, which is not nice for the kids. But it has obviously the real advantage that once you've had it, you're not going to have any problems with either the vaccine or certainly no problems with polio. It
Brilliant.
makes it an old-fashioned disease.
Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Lovely to hear your views, and hopefully people will be reassured now that it's perfectly safe and it's much better than getting polio. Thank you so much, Hugh. You're watching Dawn Neeson covering for Nana this week on GB News. More to come in the next hour. You're with Dawn Neeson covering for Nana this week on GB News, on TV and on digital radio. For the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. But first, let's get the latest news headlines.
Dawn, thank you. Good afternoon. It's 1 minute past 5. I'm Bethany Elsey, here to bring you up to date on GB News. And we'll start with some breaking news. Novelist Salman Rushdie has been attacked on a lecture stage during an event in New York. He's the author of 13 novels, and his writing has led to several death threats made against him. Most famously, a fatwa was issued over the publication of the Satanic Verses in 1989. His condition is currently unknown, and his attacker has been restrained. We'll bring you more on this developing story as we get it. After England's driest summer for 50 years, a drought has been declared in England, and the Environment Agency is warning it could last into next year. Southern, central, east and southwest England are the regions currently affected. More water companies could now enforce stricter measures to conserve supplies, with Yorkshire Water becoming the latest to impose a hosepipe ban from the 26th of this month. The Environment Secretary George Eustace says a hosepipe ban is not a big request.
We're in a very strong position now, stronger position than we've ever been, to deal with these sorts of drought conditions. But as I said, it's still the hottest, driest July since 1935, the driest summer in 50 years. To have in some parts of the country a hosepipe ban is a relatively small sacrifice for people to make in order to ensure that we are preserving our water resources in case there's a dry winter and in case there's a problem next summer.
Boris Johnson's admitted the current help for people struggling with the spiralling cost of living and rising energy prices isn't enough. It comes as a new price cap prediction claims the average family's annual energy bill could reach £5,300 by April next year. Speaking on a visit to North Wales, the outgoing Prime Minister also insisted there'll be extra help for the most hard-hit households, regardless of who succeeds him.
Cash is not only coming through now and has started to come through, but will continue to come through over the weeks and months ahead.
But the people are saying it's not enough. It's not enough.
And in addition, what we are doing is making sure that we have the fiscal firepower, we have the cash to help people more at those two key points, in October and in January.
The UK economy shrank by 0.1% between April and June. The Office for National Statistics says the phasing out of spending on test and trace and the COVID vaccine programme is partly to blame. It's a big step down from the first 3 months of the year when GDP grew by 0.8%. Chancellor Nadhim Zahawi says he wants his economic plan to be in place by the time the new PM starts on the 5th of September.
My task was to make sure we get the 37 billion out into people's pockets. We're midway through that, so in the next couple of months, people will see their bills reduced by £400. The most vulnerable, 8 million, will get £324. So my message to the viewers is we're looking at all the options of what additional help we need to bring in later on in the winter months, in December and January.
Tens of thousands of rail passengers will face disruption again tomorrow as some parts of the country will have no services at all. Train drivers at 9 train companies will go on strike for 24 hours in a dispute over jobs, pay and conditions. The industrial action will affect several lines, including Avanti West Coast, Great Western Railway, LNER, London Overground and South Eastern. And the Post Office will stage fresh strikes for 3 days at the end of August. The Communication Workers Union has announced staff will walk out on the 26th, the 27th and the 30th of August in an escalating dispute over pay. A jury has heard the ex-girlfriend of former Manchester United player Ryan Giggs screamed in pain during a 999 call after he allegedly assaulted her. The footballer is on trial at Manchester Crown Court, accused of causing actual bodily harm and headbutting Kate Greville. He is also said to have assaulted her younger sister, Emma, in the same incident at his home in November 2020. Giggs denies all the allegations. And the final list of UK cities that could host Eurovision 2023 have been revealed. The 7 shortlisted cities are Birmingham, Glasgow, Leeds, Liverpool, Manchester, Newcastle and Sheffield. The UK was chosen to host the contest after organisers declared it couldn't be staged by this year's winner, Ukraine. This is GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens. Now we'll get back to Dawn in just a second.
This is GB News. I'm Dawn Neeson, covering for Nana this week. And for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion, mine, theirs, and yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times disagreeing. Joining me today, it's author and broadcaster Christine Hamilton and Conservative commentator Kelvin Robinson. And still to come, in just a moment, it's Friday Focus. This week, we're shining a spotlight on the UK droughts. Yorkshire Water has become the latest company to announce a hosepipe ban as another heatwave scorches the country after months of low rainfall. The restrictions will come into effect from the 26th of August, the company's director said, citing fears over falling water stocks and a need for caution over clean water supplies and long-term river health as a basis for their decision. But is this the best way to tackle the heat wave? And for the great British debate this hour, I'm asking, does the traditional UK family structure need preserving? New data from the Office of National Statistics say that more babies are being born out of wedlock, such an old-fashioned term, isn't it, compared to those born in married families for the first time on record. But could this be just down to a symptom of a changing society, with people getting married later and having fewer children? With the average divorce rate in England and Wales being over a third, is the UK falling out of love with the traditional idea of marriage? Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet us at gbnews. Right, before we head to Friday Focus, more on some of that breaking news. The author Salman Rushdie has been attacked on stage in New York State. Mr. Rushdie, who suffered years of death threats after writing the satanic verses, was speaking at an event at the end of Chautauqua Institution at the time. Witnesses say they saw a man run on stage and either punch or stab Mr. Rushdie as he was being introduced. The attacker is said to have been restrained by those on the scene. Mr. Rushdie's condition is not currently known, but it's been confirmed that he was stabbed by his attacker. Right, OK, now joining me now to get more on this story from America is the host of the Political People podcast, Paul Duddridge. Right, Paul, hello, thank you for joining us. I mean, this is fairly shocking news. Could you update us more on what's happening?
I think you've covered everything that's currently known. I mean, the details are so sketchy at the moment. This has literally happened 40 minutes ago. But yes, Salman Rushdie, they have confirmed that he was stabbed at the Chautauqua Institution. He was about to give a lecture. We have to say no news is good news as far as his condition is concerned. That, you know, we're all holding our breath, hoping that the next announcement isn't that he passes. So we're just all rooting for Salman Rushdie here to make sure that he pulls through, and hopefully the attacker wasn't successful in actually ending the author's life. But yeah, it's so early. This story is literally just broken, and it is it's just so shocking, and it just gives we thought this was from the past now. We thought that this was 1988 fatwa. It had actually expired, but even as recently as 2012, an Iranian religious institution actually increased the level of the bounty on. There's a $3 million bounty on the life of Salman Rushdie, which is extraordinary. But it says something about the bravery of the man that he actually still holds public events and has actually carried on with his life as a public figure, despite these kind of threats.
Indeed, it's quite incredible that he has had the bravery to carry on. Paul, can you give us a bit more feel of what this event was like? Was there a lot of people in attendance? Is it a large venue?
It is a large venue. It was a literary lecture. So he was. I don't actually know what the subject that he was lecturing on, but it'll be some literary do. I think it's a little bit like the Cheltenham. Is it Cheltenham? Where they have the literary fest? Hey on Wye, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, so I believe it was that, and he was a guest speaker, and he was just like I said, it was just as he was being introduced on stage to give his lecture. But yes, I believe it's a literary part of a literary festival. But again, I'm not 100% on that. But it was a large venue, well attended. He's still a very popular figure in the literary world, obviously.
Of course, Paul. Thank you so much for your update on that. And as I said, sad news and. Thoughts with Mr. Rushdie and obviously his family as well. Thank you so much for joining us. And obviously, if there is any further news, we will be updating you on that throughout the programme. Now, back to what we were discussing. A drought has been declared for parts of England as the driest summer for 50 years continues. Parts of the southwest, southern and central England, as well as the east of England, are affected. I'm joined now by weather expert Phil Morrish. Hello, Phil, there you are. Thank you for joining us today. So, thank you for sitting indoors and not being out in this marvellous weather we're having. So, right, OK, what exactly does this mean? A drought has been declared. So, Phil, what is a drought? What does it mean for us all?
Well, a meteorological drought is 15 days without any rain. Now, hydrological drought is a little bit more complex term. Depends on how much water you've got in the aquifers underneath. But I think for the rainfall aspect, we're about 50% short of the rainfall for the year since July in the Midlands. In the south, they're 60% short, which is a lot of rainfall short from what we normally have. And so the drought has been called. We're not in a terrible position. The water companies are pretty confident, actually, we should be able to maintain supply. People are talking about 1976. Well, 1976 had 18 months of drought before it. It started in the middle of 1975. So we were in a much worse position than we are now. And water stocks are not that bad in most places. We've just got to be sensible. We've just got to be careful. We've just got to conserve water where we can.
You're very optimistic about it. The last time I think there was a drought declaration like this was 2018. So what's the difference between 2018 and now? And how long did the drought last then?
In 2018, it lasted about 3 or 4 months. It started in May and it ended in August. And again, we'd had a very, very dry April as well. So again, it's a similar position to this one. And these droughts are becoming more frequent. So they've started since the year 2000, we've had about 4 really nice Julys. 18 was the last one. Now we've had 22. And we reached 100 Fahrenheit on 3 years out of the last 4. So global temperatures are changing. We are getting warmer. And we've really got to work on the water supply and actually making sure we can actually hold this water for longer, because these sort of situations are becoming much more common.
That was going to be my next question, actually. Is this something now we can expect literally every summer? A drought declaration, the shower with a friend message?
Well, shower with your friend if you want and do that next time you like. That's fantastic. But yeah, well, I'd say every 3 or 4 years we're likely to now get one of these. As you say, since the year 2000, this is our 4th hot summer and this is our 4th really warm spell. And the climatologists have said that we're going to get these more frequent outbreaks of drought and warm weather. We've got to learn to adapt to it. As people have said before, we've got to learn to conserve water, build more reservoirs, and make sure we can carry water around the country more successfully. Now, we're getting better than that. In 2005, Yorkshire almost ran out of water because there wasn't anyone the water ran out of the pipes and they had to get tankers to try and just keep watering the population. So it has improved. There's still a lot more scope. And as you so rightly say, 25% of the supply is going out of the pipes and being wasted. And we've got to adapt to that and sort that out to make sure that we keep the water we desperately need.
So this, I mean, how long do you think this one will go on for? I mean, you're the weather expert. I mean, are we going to, in a few weeks' time, be wondering what all the fuss was about when we had autumn, winter, and it was cold and miserable again?
Well, to be very honest, it's very difficult to say. Now, some people have made predictions it's going to carry on. We don't know how long it's going to carry on. We can only forecast weather accurately for 7 days, and we can get a couple of months' insight into what it's like to do. Now, the Met Office have actually predicted this really, really well because they said this summer we'd have periods of heat waves and periods of cooler temperatures that we've had, and we've had those cooler periods as well, but it has been excessively dry. I would expect in a couple of weeks' time we'll start getting some rain. We're going to get some thundery showers next week. Some of the charts say the week after we could get some decent rain, then it could dry up again. But I'm pretty sure that once we get into September, things will start to change. Weather usually redresses the balance. Once you had a long period of dry weather, you usually get a period of rain and perhaps. But you see, with whether we should remember this, we should, because we've got to start addressing these issues. These are now going to become far more frequent than they have been before, and we've got to get that water carriage and water service correct.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, Phil. Now go out and enjoy that wonderful weather and have a shower with a friend at the end of it if you want to, obviously. Right, coming up, it's the Great British Debate. I'm asking, does the traditional UK family structure need preserving? New data from the Office of National Statistics says that more babies are being born out of wedlock compared to those born in married families for the first time on record. But could this just be a symptom of changing society with people getting married later, having fewer children? Even the pandemic, did that have an effect on how many of us getting married? With the average divorce rate in England and Wales being over a third, is the UK falling out of love? Well, with love, the traditional idea of marriage. First, it's the weather forecast.
Hello again, I'm Aidan McGiven from the Met Office. It's a hot and sunny one once again out there for most of us. It will stay warm overnight as well, but one exception to the clear and hot conditions, the north and northeast, where there is some lingering low cloud and some mist around coasts. That will continue, I think, in many spots, but elsewhere, high pressure bringing plenty of sunshine out there, barely a cloud in the sky for most of the UK, and that's the way it remains overnight. That low cloud and mist I mentioned affecting the far north of Scotland, some rain attached to it for the likes of Shetland and Orkney for a time, and some extra low cloud and mist creeping into northeastern coasts overnight. But it's a warm night wherever you are, a muggy one, uncomfortable for sleeping with some places like Cardiff and London. Temperatures staying at 18 Celsius through the night. And then a bright start to the day tomorrow. Once any early low cloud and mist gets out of the way, many places will see another sunny day. Again, the far north of Scotland sees a lot of cloud and some patchy rain and drizzle, but elsewhere it's sunshine, strong sunshine and rising temperatures. 30 Celsius in Keswick there, 35 for Worcester. Could see a 36 close to the West Midlands or the West Country, perhaps East Wales as well. So those kinds of temperatures, unusual for the UK and can cause health impacts and impacts to infrastructure because, of course, the country isn't used to this kind of heat. So extreme heat warning enforced through the weekend. An uncomfortable night once again for sleeping. A touch warmer even on Saturday night compared with Friday night. Temperatures in some spots staying at 19 Celsius. But that's enough for some showers to develop on Saturday night across northern parts of the UK. They really get going on Sunday for central and western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland. Risk of intense thunderstorms, and that occurs more widely on Monday. Where these thunderstorms occur, because they'll be hit and miss, there is the risk of flash flooding.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, you're with Dawn Neeson, covering for the lovely Anna this week. Nana this week, even. Who's Anna? No idea. On GB News, on TV and on digital radio. It's time for our great British debate this hour. I'm asking, does the traditional UK family structure need preserving? New data from the Office of National Statistics says that more babies are being born out of wedlock. That phrase is just so quaint, isn't it? Compared to those born in married families for the first time on record, which I think is 1845 these records began. In 1978, only 1 in 10 births were out of wedlock. But since then, that number has crept up a quarter, and in 1988 and in 2022. What is that number now? 51%. But could this just be down to a symptom of changing society, with people getting married later, having fewer children, even the pandemic? We couldn't get married that easily during the pandemic, could we? With the average divorce rate in England and Wales being over a third, is the UK falling out of love with love and the traditional idea of marriage? So, for the great British debate this hour, I'm asking, does the traditional UK family structure need preserving? And I wish these two were in the studio, because it'd be very feisty indeed. First, though, I'm joined by journalist and broadcaster Sam Dowler. Hello, Sam. Welcome to the show.
Oh, it's been a while. How are you?
It's been a long while. That's a very devilish chuckle there, young man. Right, OK, Sam. Sam, so sorry, marriage is a wonderful thing. The family structure is to be supported to the nth degree, surely. Sam?
No, it is. I mean, obviously, you know, I'm a big advocate for gay marriage, for example. People fought for it, etc. So I couldn't possibly say that that was generally about, you know, you can have a bad marriage if you want to as well, gay people. But I think it is an old school tradition. At the end of the day, like you just said, like wedlock. Oh, I mean, come on now. It's the same as illegitimate. I mean, these are phrases that aren't relevant in today's society, and you know, and also like the whole you know notion that people would stay together for the kids and stuff and live in like unhappy marriages so that their children would have both their parents around. I mean, this is archaic, and it's, you know, we're moving away from that, and that's a great thing.
But Sam, every single study has demonstrated that a committed partnership, whether it's a gay partnership or a heterosexual partnership, and preferably marriage, is better not only for the children, but also for the adults involved as well. Mental health, physical health, all of these things are statistically proven to be improved.
No, I agree with you. I think, you know, it's great for kids to have two parents. I mean, I'm not saying, you know, but also it's fine for kids to have a single parent as well, but they don't have to be married. The whole idea of wedlock is, as I said, it's archaic, and weddings in this day and age are so expensive. And the whole industry is basically built around the idea of bumping up the prices on everybody that even wants to get married. I mean, and also, like you said before, during the pandemic, there was all marriages were cancelled, etc. So therefore, people still had kids, and they had kids out of wedlock. Most of the friends that I have had their children before they got married.
So, but hold on a minute, Sam. So you're a big advocate of gay marriage, which is brilliant. I fully support it. My lovely next-door neighbours have been happily married for a long, long time. But marriage is an old-fashioned institution, so the two don't quite compute with me.
No, I said I'm a fan of gay marriage because I'm a fan of marriage equality. I'm not a big fan of marriage in general, whether it be gay or straight. Marriages. I mean, as I said, many of my friends have gotten divorced, and they are poisonous divorces as well. Family members have gotten divorced. I mean, it's more important to look after the welfare of the child than it is to maintain a relationship that isn't working. Surely.
Of course, and no one's actually advocating staying in an unhappy relationship. That's not good for anybody. So, Sam, if some handsome young man were to propose to you, you'd be saying, no, marriage is a bit old-fashioned.
Do you know what? It depends on the person. It depends on the marriage. I mean, I do have a partner, and we've been to a few weddings, gay weddings and straight weddings this summer, and every time he goes, "Oh, our wedding's not going to be like this." If we do have a wedding, he wants it to be science fiction themed and all sorts. So I mean, who even knows? I mean, I don't think we would have children, so it's not really relevant on that. But I think the idea of marriage is fine if you want to have it. I love going to weddings. I think it's great, but I don't think it is necessary in the slightest, or even should have anything to do with having children.
Right, OK, and so would children make a difference to whether you had your marriage ceremony science fiction or not? I've now got an image of you as Luke Skywalker, which is completely wrong, by the way. But would children make a difference to a relationship?
Well, this is the thing. A friend of mine, she's had 3 children, 3 girls under 3 actually, and her and her boyfriend are due to be married next year. And obviously the pandemic got in the way, and it's nice they will have the 3 girls as their bridesmaids, etc. But and it is nice for them to have a marriage because they hopefully will stay together. But at the end of the day, it's not essentially. It had nothing to do with them having children. It's about them, the party, the relationship, and sometimes obviously legalities as well.
That's lovely. Thanks, Sam. Lovely to chat to you this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm getting a hat ready for when you do have your science fiction wedding. Thank you so much for that. Now, I'm also joined by political commentator Emma Webb. Hello, Emma.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you for joining us. Now, I'm guessing you possibly might not agree with some of the things Sam said. What do you reckon?
Well, I think we just have to look at the statistics. So, firstly, the fact that monogamous countries, and this is a point that that Louise Perry, I almost said Katy Perry there, Louise Perry has made, which is that monogamous systems do better than polygamous countries do. The fact that, as you already mentioned there, Dawn, all of the studies suggest that both children and parents are better in terms of their well-being on all outcomes, psychological, physical, social, on a range of outcomes. Both the children and the parents are better off in a nuclear family with 2 married parents. There are also studies by, for example, the Institute of Family Studies that showed that children do better with 2 in school who have 2 married biological parents as opposed to adopted parents. That's not to say that adoption is not a good thing. Of course it is, and probably preferable for those children given the circumstances they would be in otherwise. But the point is that on a range of outcomes, whether it's education, whether it's health, children do better within a nuclear traditional family, and so do the parents. The parents also do better out of this, and society, with families being the first institution of any community, and not only local communities but national communities. In order to have strong and stable a strong and stable society, it's clear that the traditional family unit, the nuclear family, and having two married parents is the ideal setup. And that's still the case, even if it is the case that those things are declining in our society. I would say that that's a very bad thing.
Emma, you very firmly said sort of like married parents there. Is there a difference between a couple who are married raising a family, in your mind this is, and a couple who are just living together in a committed, faithful relationship but not necessarily married? Why is marriage important?
There is a difference in the statistics. So children who are born to unmarried couples that are cohabiting, some of the studies suggest that the children in that relationship are more likely to not see their to not see their father for 2 years of that formative period. So say from the age of about 3. So there are studies that show that actually having two married parents is better for a child's well-being, and particularly that it's better for boys. So on a number of outcomes, particularly having the father present, as we know that it's more likely for children to be with their mother in a single parent situation. For boys in particular, having their biological father around and having a father figure is extremely important for their development. It has a huge effect on their ability to develop empathy when they're adults, to develop social relations. It has a huge effect on how many years in school, in education, how well they do in terms of their educational outcomes. So actually marriage is very important, and that's probably because it is a stabilizing factor.
That's great. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we really appreciate your contribution. And, well, let's have a look at what some of you have been saying on this one. So, Thea, you say, so long as the baby is loved and cared for, the marital status of the parents is irrelevant, as the sex, gender, religion or race of the parents. That's to say, it's not relevant at all. Maggie, meanwhile, says, I'm a big believer in what works for some doesn't work for others. I know couples who were together for years, then got married and split up soon after. Oh dear. Melanie, meanwhile, says, I believe as long as a child is brought up with both parents and taught good values, there is no problem. Meanwhile, Jerry says, marriage now is just a label and an excuse for a party. Oh, wow. OK, well, that's a bit sad. Right, I'm Dawn Neeson. I'm covering for Nana this week on GB News on TV and digital radio. Coming up, we'll continue our great British debate. I'm asking, does the traditional UK family structure need preserving? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel. I can't wait for this one. Author and broadcaster Christine Hamilton and Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson, who has very strong views on this one. But first, the news headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Dawn, thank you. It's 5:33. I am Bethany Elsey, here to bring you up to date from the GB newsroom. And we'll start with some breaking news. The novelist Salman Rushdie has been attacked on a lecture stage at an event in New York. State police says he was stabbed in the neck and taken to hospital in a helicopter. The event interviewer was also attacked. Their condition is currently unknown. Rushdie's writing has led to several death threats made against him. Most famously, a fatwa was issued over the publication of the Satanic Verses in 1989. The Politics People podcast host Paul Dudriz says Rushdie is still a very popular figure in the literary world.
We thought this was from the past now. We thought that this was 1988 fatwa. It had actually expired. There's a $3 million bounty on the life of Salman Rushdie, which is extraordinary. But it says something about the bravery of the man that he actually still holds public events and has actually carried on with his life as a public figure, despite these kind of threats.
After England's driest summer for 50 years, a drought has been declared, and the Environment Agency is warning it could last into next year. Southern, central, east and southwest England are the regions currently affected. More water companies could now enforce stricter measures to conserve supplies, with Yorkshire Water becoming the latest to impose a hosepipe ban from the 26th. The UK economy shrank by 0.1% between April and June. The Office for National Statistics says the phasing out of spending on test and trace and the COVID-19 vaccine programme is partly to blame. It's a big step down from the first 3 months of the year when GDP grew. on TV, online and DAB Plus radio. This is GB News. We'll get back to Dawn in just a moment.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, welcome back. I'm Dawn Neeson, covering for Nana this week, and this is GB News on your TV and on your digital radio. It's time for our Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, does the traditional UK family structure need preserving? New data from the official Office of National Statistics says that more babies are being born out of wedlock compared to those born in married families for the first time on record. That's 1845. But could this just be down to a symptom of a changing society, with people getting married later and having fewer children, the pandemic? So, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, does the traditional UK family structure need preserving? So let's see what my panel make of this. This is going to be feisty. You really want to stick around for this. I'm joined by author and broadcaster Christine Hamilton and Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson. Right, OK, Calvin, you're not a big fan of marriage and stable families, are you, at all, in any way, shape or form?
After God, family is the most important thing in the world. And it was so depressing hearing people, not just Sam, but people in the comments saying, oh, who cares about it now? It's old-fashioned, outdated, archaic even. Yes, it is archaic. Marriage has been around before all the big religions. Marriage is the one sacrament that already existed. It's the basis of our human society. You know, it's the first community we're a part of. It's the fundamental building blocks of Western society. And this is why so many people want to break it down. If you look at what's happening, China, Russia, all the big states that are hostile to us have massive emphasis on the importance of family. You know, we talk about TikTok and the dangers of social media over here because they're undermining our way of life and our family values. Over there in China, their app actually promotes family life and promotes wholesome. You know, over here, we used to talk about the nuclear family being 2.4 kids and that being something to celebrate. Now it's called heteronormative family, as if it's somehow derogatory. And you can celebrate the ideal family, the idea of having a strong paternal role model and a strong maternal role model being the ideal family without being derogatory to other lifestyles and other types of families. You know, I was brought up in a single parent, sorry for hitting the mic, single parent family. So I'm not saying anything is wrong with single parents, but I'm saying there is an ideal situation and that's a good thing to aim towards. It's good to have standards.
It's interesting, Sam wasn't over keen on marriage, but was very keen on gay marriage. So, you know, do you think gay marriage is a thing, should be a thing?
In my religion, there's no such thing as gay marriage. I mean, I'm not saying that two men can't live together, two women can't live together, but they cannot be married as the sacrament, as a unity under God, because the purpose of marriage is procreation and unity under God, one man, one woman. You can't procreate if you're two men or two women. It's basic.
OK, well, I mean, I've been married for 36 years and I haven't procreated, unfortunately. Yeah, but I haven't procreated. I forgot about that bit. Christine, it's just a bit of paper. Who cares about marriage?
It's absolutely not just a bit of paper. Sam seemed to go on about the word wedlock. Yes, of course, that is a very outdated
wedlock,
term.
padlock, similar.
That is absurd. Let's stop calling it wedlock. That was ridiculous. And he went on about the cost of a wedding. It's nothing to do with the cost of a wedding. You can get married in a registry office for, I don't know, but not a lot of money. The cost of the wedding is completely irrelevant. Marriage is the absolute bedrock of our society. And
yes.
Study after study after study shows it's, you know, men in particular benefit from being married.
Oh, yes.
Married people are generally, they live longer, they're happier. I don't know how you measure that, but they're happier, they're healthier, etc. Men in particular benefit disproportionately from marriage. I think we know why that is. They get cosseted and looked after. And it's better for the children and people. Of course, there are exceptions. Nobody wants people to stay in an unhappy marriage. That is not what this is about. But the commitment that people make and the stability that it gives, you know, every relationship goes through difficult patches. Yes. If you're married, it is just that little bit more difficult to walk away. You think about it and you realise that was just a storm in a teacup and you actually are fine.
Well, on that note, just to give you some disagreement, I do think the terms wedlock and tied down actually are helpful because it shows the sign of commitment that you're not going to run away at the first sign of difficulty.
Okay,
you're tied into something, and that's important.
I accept that, but
Christine,
it does also give...
He's single.
He's single,
Just
yeah. No, but also people go on and on and on about saying a third of all marriages end in divorce. Yes, maybe they do, and that's very disappointing, but half of all cohabitating couples will end their relationship, so it is much more stable to be in a marriage than it is to be
How long have you been married?
A very long time. We met at 18 and I'm knocking 73 and it is absolute heaven. I love it.
That's fantastic.
There are days when I could wring his neck.
Yes.
But that's not the point.
Yeah, yeah. So you would advocate marriage, the traditional version of marriage as well?
Look, people are lonelier, more isolated and disconnected now than they've ever been before because we no longer believe as a society in marriage. We know that kids are twice as likely to end up failing through school. We know kids are twice as likely to end up on drugs and more than twice as likely to end up homeless if their family breaks down before they're 18. Family is so important.
But times have moved on. I mean, it's old-fashioned, surely.
Yes, well, yes, times have moved on, but the fundamentals have not. And Calvin's just enunciated some of them. The fundamentals, and study after study after study shows that marriage is the best way to bring up children. And what is this all about? It's bringing up the next generation. And children are better off, I'm not talking about materially, but they are better off emotionally, healthy, etc., in the context of a marriage.
So, I mean, right, OK. So
sorry, no disagreement.
Well, no, I know. I'm trying to play devil's advocate here, but I'm very happily married. Well, I think I'm happily married. The husband might have something else to say on that one. So, I mean, but why do you think being married actually means you are more committed to one another than just being in a live-in relationship?
Well, it doesn't...
What is it about marriage?
Well, look, I am totally committed and have been for decades to my marriage.
Some would say you should be, actually. If you've been married for that length of time, committed, I mean.
No, I said I am.
Yes, I know, that's what I mean.
But I am not saying that a lot of people who are in cohabiting relationships and everything are not committed. I'm not saying that at all. And I'm not, you know... There are exceptions that prove every rule, but the general marriage it is the bedrock of society. It really is, and people who want to tear it down and tear it apart and who mock it, it's very it's very fashionable nowadays to mock marriage. You know, why do you want to bother to get married? Well, we had it from Sam, didn't we? I mean, great guy, but we did have it from Sam, talking about wedlock and the cost of the wedding. There is actually a statistic that the more the wedding costs, the shorter the marriage.
Yes.
But
you know what? I was astonished by this. I mean, when we got married back in the dark ages, obviously, I mean, it cost. We did it all ourselves. My cousin made my wedding dress and the bridesmaids' dresses. 120 quid for all three, by the way. Thank you, Leslie. Great dresses. Still got it. And we did a church hall thing, and we spent literally a couple of £100 quid. We even made our own sandwiches. So when I read now, which were dreadful, I wouldn't advise that. But when I read now that people are literally paying Thousands.
On a stag night, never mind the
Thousands
wedding.
of pounds. Yeah, absolutely. Invites to go to, I don't know, Ibiza, for example, and spend thousands of pounds.
Showing off, isn't it? But a marriage is supposed to be, again, union under God, but also it's showing the community, the wider community, that you are committed to each other. And I think that's why it's more important than just living together or just saying you're a partnership, because it's not just a piece of paper.
No.
It is a unity.
If we could go back to the statistics that started all this, what I would like to know is that apparently more children are born out of wedlock. What is behind that? Are these people who are in a very happy cohabiting marriage and they are going to get married or they're going to be... Who knows? The answer, I don't know the answers to these questions.
No, we don't know.
That would be interesting to know.
And I think part of it is based... It was taken in the last 2 years when obviously the pandemic meant that getting married, the kind of wedding that people wanted wasn't that easy. So I think that is maybe skewing these figures. And who knows, it may well go back to sort of like, you know, being actually more popular to be in wedlock. Right, OK, so let's see what some of the people out there are saying, who they agree with. Today we're asking, does the traditional UK family structure need preserving? Lots of you have been getting in touch with your views on this one. I'm really interested to see what you've got to say. So, Shelley, I'm all for the nuclear family and I'm happily married myself. Oh, congratulations. A happy marriage is the most ideal environment for bringing up kids, but I'm also aware that some marriages can be unhappy ones, so aren't good for people with children. People should always think about the well-being of their kids. That's true. Zach, meanwhile, says, marriage means little in Western society today. One issue has been the state's involvement in regulating the institution. From a secular perspective, the legalities surrounding marriage aren't the most appealing. Oh, it's a bit downbeat, isn't it? It's a good party. Meanwhile, Alex says, I believe marriage is best, but I have tried and failed 4 times, so I have given up. My sister's on her 3rd as well, so there's a lot. It's not uncommon if you're in an unhappy marriage. It is important to actually make that break. Meanwhile, Tom says the destruction of marriage and the nuclear family has proven to be a failed social experiment. A mother, father, and children always works best. Well, you know, I'm going to agree with that one. So, but now it's time for our quick-fire debate. We need some music for this. It's so just dull just reading it out. This is the part of the show where we discuss some of the other stories making the headlines, some of the fun stuff as well. Joining me today for this little bit still is author and broadcaster Christine Hamilton and Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson. So, OK, now I haven't seen these stories yet, so don't blame me if they're horrible. Anyway, so the first story, one from the Daily Mail. Oh, I do like the story, though. Shakespeare's Globe Theatre is now portraying historical feminist icon Joan of Arc as non-binary. You knew that was coming, didn't you? The backlash that followed criticised the production for violating a female and cultural icon, arguing that the title of female being taken away from the character, it reduces the heroine aspect of it all. Right, and there's a picture of the non-binary Joan of Arc wearing a chest binder, rather a grubby one at that. OK, so, good story, this one. Let's see what we think of this one.
Absolutely disgusting. I was debating with the chairman of the Shakespeare Globe about this because it's, again, the woke lot destroying women, breaking down women.
Exactly.
One of the few stories
always women?
has a heroine from Shakespeare's time. It's now no longer a woman. It's now a non-binary person. It's a they, them. It's not a he, she. And what are they doing? They think this is progressive. And they say because the character was not necessarily feminine, therefore she must be non-binary. So, again, it goes back to 1950s stereotypes of what it means to be a woman.
Women can be fierce, we can be feisty, we can be warriors. We can still be women, though, Christine, surely.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think it's absolutely outrageous, and I don't know how much Globe Theatre gets in way of public money and grant, but honestly, if they're going to produce that sort of rubbish, I'd take it away. Well, it is outrageous. They're rewriting history.
And it's always women. They're always rewriting it.
It's always the women that are attacked.
I know, absolutely. I won't be going to see it. I'll tell you that much now. OK, right. According to head teachers, private school students are choosing to study in the US at Ivy League universities over heading to Oxbridge. Roughly 20% of pupils, that's over 50 students at the elite boarding school, Eton College, are moving across the pond. Wow. Teachers at private institutions have said pupils are feeling increasingly concerned about being admitted to Oxbridge since the number of state school admissions have increased over the last few years. Well, that sounds a bit snobby to me. By trying to be more inclusive, Are we scaring off young talent?
Yeah, it's actually reverse, Nobby. It's terrible what's going on. So I've been to Eton and Radley recently, and the number of kids that they've had getting into Oxbridge has gone down dramatically. The results haven't changed. The kids are not any less smart than they were before, but Oxford and Cambridge are wanting to take in more working class kids. So what they're doing is lowering entry requirements for kids from working class backgrounds, and then upping them for people from that went to private schools. Instead of helping state schools get better grades, they're dumbing the system down.
And you used to be a teacher, Calvin, didn't you? So you know what you're talking about in this area.
It's absolutely terrible what's happening. Because all it means is kids leaving Oxford and Cambridge, well, kids getting into Oxford and Cambridge aren't going to have the capability to cope there, and then they're going to leave with rubbish degrees.
And Christine, surely as a working class kid, you want to get there on your own merits and be equal to the toffs, in inverted commas.
University shouldn't be about quotas, etc., etc. It should be about merit, and they should take the academically excellent pupils from wherever they come from. But for those who are heading off to Harvard, etc., and Yale, I understand the reasons. Calvin's just enunciated exactly why, because they don't have much hope of getting into Oxford or Cambridge. I mean, good for them, they'll have a fantastic time, but it's absurd. Why aren't they at our great universities?
So it's the same thing not happening in America then, Calvin, in the education system?
It is in places, but not to the degree it's happening here.
Right.
It's terrible here, but our universities have gone woke anyway, so I don't blame kids for wanting to go to universities in America.
And they're not as woke in America?
No, because Trump instituted a anti-stereotyping executive order. It has now been repealed, but it did shake things up for a good while. And they're fighting back massively over there. We're not fighting back over here. We're letting them get away with it. Yeah.
Surely, the point you made, Calvin, and I totally agree on this one, surely the point is to make schools, especially in the poorer working class areas, better educationally for those kids.
And these universities
pull
are
those
charities.
kids up.
They should be working with the state schools to help improve their academic abilities, help the kids get better grades. Do not make it easier for kids to get in with lower grades. It doesn't make any sense. It helps nobody.
No, absolutely. Actually, the most famous examples I can think of people getting in with lower grades is the royal family. Didn't they sort of like, get into university with grades that maybe weren't as high as they could have been?
No comment.
So, well, just sort of throw that one in there. Right, and now let's move on. A story from The Times. Staff at England's largest exam board are set to strike on A-level results day. Yay, way to go. Potentially causing widespread disruption to thousands of prospective university students. About 180 workers at AQA, including those in customer service, who would be handling student and parent inquiries, will strike between Wednesday, August the 17th and Sunday, August the 21st, with results day on that Thursday. OK, is this just being selfish? Ruin the biggest day of a child's life and all the stress. I still have nightmares about my A-levels. It's not good. So, come on.
We have let down this generation. This last couple of years, half of them haven't been to school for months on end because of the stupid lockdown restrictions and closing schools even before lockdowns, and they're doing them a disservice. All these people that are going to strike and potentially damage these young people's results day should be fired. They should be replaced with people who are willing to go to work.
It's deliberately been timed to cause maximum damage to those students, and it's outrageous, but it's what they all do, isn't it? Any people who are going on strike, they choose the best or worst possible day, according to how you...
Every strike so far we've had that, isn't it? The rail strikes to coincide with the Commonwealth Games and the start of the football season. And I get that, but these are kids. These, as you say, been through hell on wheels educationally for the last 2 years.
They should take a leaf out of Ronald Reagan's book when the air traffic controllers went on strike. He sacked the lot and got in others. Just do that. Just if you don't come to work on those days, out.
Yes.
Oh, gosh, right, OK. One quickie I think we've got time for. British farmers have issued a stark warning to all Christmas lovers out there. Oh, all right, OK. Brussels sprouts may not survive this year's extreme summer. Hey, good news. Anyway, farmers have said they are finding it hard to plant seeds as the land is so dry due to the lack of rainfall and scorching temperatures. This means there could be a shortage of this winter after such a poor start to the harvest. OK, it's not just sprouts that are under threat. OK, staples like broccoli and cabbage. Every kid out there is going, yes, bring it on.
I love sprouts. I love cabbage.
So, go on, so sprouts. I do not get sprouts.
It all depends how people cook them. If you cook them properly, they're fabulous.
Some bacon lardons and some chestnuts.
I don't want to be smug or anything, but we are growing Brussels sprouts, cabbage, broccoli.
Yes,
so we should be all right, as long as we don't get a hosepipe ban.
Can you bring some into the studio?
I'll bring some into the studio if I'm lucky.
Are you not under hosepipe ban yet?
Well, not when I left home, no.
Give it time. But I mean, Brussels sprouts.
This
come on.
Is Project Fear,
They're
Dawn.
fabulous.
It's Project Fear. Don't listen to it.
I quite like this bit of Project Fear, to be honest with you. I remember sitting at...
Shred them finely and then just sauté them very, very quickly in butter.
Even then they're
fabulous.
And they just make...
Bit of lemon juice.
They give you...
Lardons.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Lardons.
Oh, lardons. What are they?
Little pancetta.
Right.
You see, you know the foreign word, but not the basic British word.
Yeah. I'm not exactly...
Same thing.
I need a map and compass to find the kitchen, to be honest with you, which is probably a good thing. But Brussels sprouts, they just play your tummy up, don't they? I mean,
They're gorgeous. I love them. It's not Christmas dinner without Brussels sprouts.
But it's like so many foods. People don't like them because they've had them very often at school, not Brussels sprouts maybe, but they've been overcooked and destroyed. People didn't like rice pudding because the stuff you got at school.
Yeah, because rice pudding at school was like... that
exactly.
What was that thing on top? Like a crust?
But rice pudding cooked properly is fabulous.
Oh, it is.
Gorgeous.
But I know, I'm sorry, I mean...
Sarah Sprouts.
Becoming a foodie blog, I like this.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's come cooking with Dawn Neeson. No, don't ever do that. But I remember...
like it's not a good idea. No. Cooking with Calvin is better.
Dawn's always commenting on my food on Instagram.
Oh, God, yeah, you eat a lot, but then you've got a metabolism, I remember that. In any case, on today's show, we've been asking, should we renationalise energy to ease the cost of living? According to our Twitter poll, 48% of you say yes, and 52% of you say no. Interesting. So pretty much a bit Brexit, really, isn't it? Let's have another vote on it. Thank you so much to my wonderful panel, author and broadcaster Christine Hamilton and Conservative commentator Kelvin Robinson. Thank you so much. It's been brilliant. Really appreciate it. And thank you at home for your company. I'll be back at 4 p.m. tomorrow. But now I'll leave you with the weather forecast and have a lovely, wonderful afternoon.
Hello again, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. It's a hot and sunny one once again out there for most of us. It will stay warm overnight as well, but one exception to the clear and hot conditions, the north and northeast, where there is some lingering low cloud and some mist around coasts. That will continue, I think, in many spots. But elsewhere, high pressure bringing plenty of sunshine out there, barely a cloud in the sky for most of the UK, and that's the way it remains overnight. That low cloud and mist I mentioned affecting the far north of Scotland, some rain attached to it for the likes of Shetland and Orkney for a time, and some extra low cloud and mist creeping into northeastern coasts overnight. But it's a warm night wherever you are, a muggy one, uncomfortable for sleeping, with some places like Cardiff and London, temperatures staying at 18 Celsius through the night. And then a bright start to the day tomorrow. Once any early low cloud and mist gets out of the way, many places will see another sunny day. Again, the far north of Scotland sees a lot of cloud and some patchy rain and drizzle, but elsewhere it's sunshine, strong sunshine and rising temperatures. 30 Celsius in Keswick there, 35 for Worcester. Could see a 36 close to the West Midlands or the West Country, perhaps East Wales as well. So those kinds of temperatures, unusual for the UK and can cause health impacts and impacts to infrastructure because, of course, the country isn't used to this kind of heat. So extreme heat warning in force through the weekend. An uncomfortable night once again for sleeping. A touch warmer even on Saturday night compared with Friday night. Temperatures in some spots staying at 19 Celsius. But that's enough for some showers to develop on Saturday night across northern parts of the UK. They really get going on Sunday for central and western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland. Risk of intense thunderstorms, and that occurs more widely on Monday. Where these thunderstorms occur, because they'll be hit and miss, there is the risk of flash flooding.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a